Right, how is everybody going today? Awesome, yay. Excited about STEM? Well, time to get even more excited because I'm talking about that. Yay. Okay, so does everyone here remember back to high school when you used to just rush to mathematics class thinking, I cannot wait to get stuck into these nonlinear equations? Yeah? Oh, okay. There's always one, right? There's always one. So that actually wasn't me. I was not into maths in high school because from year 9 onwards, all I wanted to be was a lawyer, just like Alan Beale. It was mostly the shoes, maybe the boyfriends, a little bit of saving the world perhaps. But I didn't become a lawyer because just before uni started, I discovered engineering. It was a short-term job, and when I saw that engineering was about using maths and science to solve problems for people and for communities, I loved it. I loved it so much that I switched my degree and I studied engineering instead of law. Now, this decision, I'm so happy I made it because it actually led me down a very unexpected career path. So it led me down a career path where I've done a lot of different things, including working as an engineer at the Port of Brisbane, doing a PhD, founding a non-profit organisation called Power of Engineering that inspires young people, girls and regional students all about engineering and breaks down the stereotypes. I'm not actually going to talk about that though because my fabulous colleague Annie will be in this afternoon to share more about Power of Engineering. I have started a mathematics education company called Machinam. I work with the University of Melbourne, which is reimagining how we actually educate engineers for the future of work. I work with the Adelaide Crows on a program called STEM Footy, which is all about inspiring students about STEM through the context of AFL. And last but definitely not least, because this is probably the most exciting thing I've ever done, learning to fly in these 2 super cool fighter jets. Yes. So, I do a whole bunch of different things. Many of them are STEM related. Now, given the work I do, how much maths do you think I use in my everyday life? Who thinks quite a lot? A few, yeah? And who thinks, not much at all? It's about 50-50. Okay, yeah. So, the answer to that actually depends on how we look at it. And we'll come back to that. But first, who has ever had a student ask them this question about maths? Or better yet, who was asking this question of their teacher when they were in school? Yeah? Everyone else knew why they had to do the maths? All right, very switched on, more so than me, apparently. Because I was definitely one of the students sitting in the back of my maths class, torturing my teacher, asking them, why do I have to learn this? It's like, I'm going to be a lawyer, I don't need to know maths. Little did I know. And who knows who this guy is? Yeah, I mean, he's like Australia's very own maths superhero, right? Eddie Wu. What a champion. So I love how he talks about this question and the answer to this question. So he says that he gets asked this question all the time. And what people really mean when they're asking this question is, when in my everyday life will I ever need to solve a pair of simultaneous equations or differentiate a trigonometric function or construct a formal geometry proof. And do you know what the answer to that question is? You won't. Most likely, you're not going to need to do those things in your everyday life. Even if you do end up in what we think of as like a maths-heavy job, like engineering, technology has advanced sufficiently that we, engineers, don't actually do a lot of the number crunching or the computational stuff anymore because we outsource that to computers. Okay, so even if you're in a super like maths-heavy job, we outsource this stuff. So this is what I said. So we're not going to use this in our everyday life. And that's okay, because that's actually not the point of why we learn a lot of this stuff in school. So if that's not the point, what is the point? Jokes. So the point is very similar to why we learn a lot of the subjects that we learn in school. It's to teach us how to think, right? So as superstar Eddie Blue says, it's to make us into people who can think logically and creatively and critically and insightfully about the world around us. It's to prepare us for a future where we become contributing citizens of society. So maths in particular helps us to grow our mental muscles in things like critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking, and being resourceful. Because just like we go to the gym to build up our physical muscles, we also need to work out our mental muscles. And this is actually super important in today's day and age, because right now we're educating students for jobs that don't even exist yet. And that means we need to be building up these core capabilities, not just the really tangible, traditional skills that we're all super familiar with. Now, out of interest, I actually had a look at what are some of these jobs that don't exist yet that we're educating students to be able to do in the future. And these are some of the things that I came up with. Custom body part manufacturer, a brain implant specialist, which by the way, that's kind of already a thing, becoming a thing, yes, really. A personal microbiome manager, a space tourism guide, I'll sign up for that one, and an organizational disruptor. So, I don't know if all of these are going to come to fruition, but I think it's a pretty good indication of the sorts of careers that are going to exist in the future. And we can't possibly know exactly what sorts of skills these careers are going to require. But one thing that we can be pretty clear about is that they're going to require what sort of capabilities? These ones. The ones that maths delivers. So research out of the Foundation for Young Australians. Is anyone familiar with the Foundation for Young Australians? Quite a few people. They do amazing work. And, if you are interested in the future of work, I highly recommend looking up some of their reports. They're really well researched and really, really useful. But so research out of FYA and lots of other institutions tell us that having a STEM mindset is critical in preparing young people for the future of work, future careers that don't exist yet. And so when they talk about that STEM mindset, this is the sort of thing they're talking about, right? So this is my number one reason why maths is important, because it helps to grow your brain in ways that will be crucially important for future jobs. But I know also that a lot of students might find this concept a little bit abstract, a little bit of a stretch. Because if I think back to myself at 14 years old, I would have been like, hell, I'm going to be LMFBL, I don't care about this. this doesn't apply to me. So I get that. People also want to see a real tangible reason about why maths is important for them right now. And to tell you the truth, even if they don't end up using this high level of advanced mathematics in their day-to-day life, there's actually still a whole bunch of fundamentals that they will need in their everyday life. So I thought to share this, I would talk to you about 4 ways that I use maths in my day-to-day life. So, way number 1 is in running a business. So in our mathematics education business, I am head of product. And that means that I am responsible for delivering our product suites on time and on budget. And this means how much work is involved in creating each scenario, how many resources, as in people, time, and money, we have available, and balancing those across all the different things we're doing at one time. So there's a whole bunch of stuff around budgeting and future projections and that sort of stuff. And it might be like, yeah, okay, sure, but you are in the math space, so that kind of makes sense. But this is actually the sort of job that a lot of people who go down a creative path actually find themselves in. So my husband is an example of that. So he's a designer, and he started out life working in a design studio. He now works for Seek, Australia's #1 job site, which I have to say because he's my husband. He now works for Seek, and he is a product manager. And a lot of product managers actually come from a design background. And so his role is very, very similar to my role. So he has to do all the same sorts of things, managing the resources and the time and the scheduling and all of that. So that's actually, I find that really interesting because we've come from very, very different backgrounds and pathways and ended up doing really, really similar work. So that's number 1. Number 2 is around measuring impact. So who wants to save the world? Well, for people who are interested in really making a difference in the world, they might end up working in a non-profit organisation. So Power of Engineering, which I mentioned super briefly at the top of this talk, is a non-profit organisation. And we are super, super interested in impact and knowing how successful our programs actually are. And because of that, we are obsessed with data. So we collect data at all of our events and going on well after our events are finished. And then we actually use that. So we analyse it and we work out how our impact is tracking, if it's improving or decreasing over time, if there are any differences by geographic location, for example. And then based on all of that data and what we find out from that analysis, we use that to make decisions about the organisation and where we might want to invest more attention or more funding or make changes to the program. So the data and the maths is super important in the non-profit and charity space as well. Number 3, my favourite, learning to fly. Okay, so this photo is from a recent adventure that we went on. So we actually took these 2 jets and we went and visited my tiny, tiny little hometown in country Queensland called Gayndah. So it's a town of 1,500 people, and we went to inspire the local students and community about engineering and aviation and STEM careers more broadly. And that's actually my mum right there. So proud. She was very, very excited to have us there. So this was an extremely exciting adventure, but it was also really educational for me because I got to learn all about the maths that's actually involved in flying. So I learned that pilots use maths to do things like work out how far we can get with the fuel that we have, and planning the flight route and how long it will take to get places at a particular speed and a particular altitude. Because apparently how high you are actually changes how fast you get places. And there's a whole bunch of maths behind that. But, interesting tidbit, something that I learned was this concept of pilot maths. So I previously would have thought that being a pilot was one of those really maths heavy jobs where you have to be like super smart, super expert in maths. But apparently it's not, or at least not at the high level maths anyway, because so one of the people who is actually teaching my friend and I to fly is the former lead of the roulettes. So does anyone know what the roulettes are? Yeah, right. So they're the ones who do all the formation stuff for the Air Force. So that, there's like 8 planes and they're like going around like this and loops, all of that sort of stuff. So he was the lead for that. So he was like super experienced pilot, Steve. And as he says, when they're flying, pilots actually don't need to do any kind of complicated maths. And they're also not really concerned with being accurate. Which I was like, what? But accuracy is not important. What they do have to do, however, is they need to do maths really fast. So they've got to do calculations really fast, and while they're thinking about like 6 other things at once. So while they don't have to be experts at maths, they do have to be really comfortable and confident with maths. So I thought that was really, really interesting because it definitely busted a myth that I thought was true about being a pilot. Okay, and sports. So this is not one that I do personally, but it is something that I've been learning a lot about through my involvement with the STEM footy program that the Adelaide Crows are running. So there's actually loads of maths behind sports stuff. Now, there are some really kind of obvious ones, like if you're thinking about AFL, like the trajectory of kicking a football to the goal thing, whatever, or positioning on a field. But there's also loads of maths behind the scenes in sports. So is anybody here familiar with that movie Moneyball? Yeah, well, it's awesome. It's such an interesting movie, right? And it's a true story about how statistics actually change the face of most professional sports. So if you're not familiar with it, basically it's this story about the manager of a baseball team in the United States called the Oakland A's, and they have a really tight budget. And so the manager hires an economist to help him select or draft the players for his team for a year. And they actually use statistics as opposed to the gut feel of a coach, which is how all the player drafting had been done until this point to make their decisions. And some of the decisions they made, people thought were pretty crazy. And people thought they were going to fail. They had no support, no backing behind the method. Anyway, it's a movie, so I'm sure you can guess. They succeeded. So they went from being right near the bottom of the ladder to actually being actually winning 20 games straight in a row. And the Chicago Red Sox they tried to hire the manager because they were so successful. They adopted it, they won the World Series, and now it's not only infiltrated baseball, but most other professional sports as well. So loads of maths in the statistics there. All right. So why am I giving you all of these examples about maths and how I use it in my life? It's because when it comes to things like maths, real-world relevance is so important. So through Power of Engineering, we discovered that the most effective way to engage students in engineering was by connecting them with real life examples and having them actually experience these concepts in the real world. And the same goes for maths. And that's why we created maths in real life. Because as engineers, we could see how much of the maths being taught at school was relevant to the real world. So we teamed up with teachers to create this online maths resource that connect what students are learning in class to the real world, and is also linked to the Australian curriculum. And all of our scenarios are examples of how the maths they're learning is used in the real world. So the premise behind this resource is that engagement leads to increased motivation, which leads to improved results in the classroom. So the concept of our resources is that they start with the why. Answering that age-old question that students have about maths: why do I have to learn this? Why do I care? So as an example of what we do, so here's one: dress to impress. So in this one, the students actually take on the role of a fashion designer, and they're tasked with creating a statement piece for an upcoming collection, which is a women's jacket. I think this one. It's inspiration. So through this quest, the students actually learn about trigonometry and similar triangles. And we didn't just come up with this and pull it out of thin air or out of our heads. To come up with the scenario, we actually visited the studios of fashion designer Bianca Spender. So, she's a real-life fashion designer. Her clothes are in David Jones and all of that. So we went and visited her studio here in Sydney and interviewed a lot of her designers to find out about the maths that they used in their day-to-day work. And I have to say that I was actually really, really surprised, because I didn't think there would be that much maths in fashion design. But what we actually found out was, there's actually loads, and most of the designers there even took top-level maths in high school, which I was absolutely shocked about. And something that I loved was one of the programs that they were using to do all of their designs was called AutoCAD, which we also use in engineering to do our engineering designs. So engineers and fashion designers have a lot more in common than I realised, which is quite cool. So another example, which is really close to my heart because it's kind of engineering, is called A Thirsty City. And so in this one, the concept of the scenario is that your town is running out of water and you need to work out how much time is left until the dam is empty and what the best option will be for the town's future water supply. So, there's lots of different ways that we could possibly bring maths, the real world into the maths that we're learning in the classroom, but this is the way that we've come up with. So look, my big point is this. Maths is important for two big reasons. One, because there are fundamentals that we all use every day. Managing our household budgets, buying a house, grocery shopping, cooking. So maths comes in handy for all of that life management stuff, no matter what job you end up in. And two, because of the less tangible benefits that come from learning this more specific, more complex type of maths. And even though this type is less tangible, it does not mean that it's less important, because this is the type of maths. This maths is how we train our brains in the skills that we know will be important for the future careers. So critical and creative thinking, problem solving, resourcefulness. To get these skills, we need to practice and build our mental muscles. And maths is like the gym that allows us to do that. And that's why it's so important. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions today? So these examples that you gave, they were for United States. Do you do any work with earlier, like primary school kids?
We don't through the Maths in Real Life program, but Power of Engineering, which Annie will talk about this afternoon, are actually going to be expanding to primary school pretty shortly. So definitely talk to Annie about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Jillian, you mentioned you visited Bianca, spoke to the team about fashion design and so forth, with Matt's involved. As you would know or may know, careers programs normally operate on the smell of an oily rag. Is any of that material that you've gained from that available on your website for careers advice to utilise?
Not necessarily, but we actually, something that could be useful is we've got like a whole bunch of examples that we came up with when we were starting to, like brainstorming and just meeting people and, we'd sort of collate them all. It's not currently available, but what I might say is if anybody is interested in accessing that, perhaps contact me, either shoot me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can make that available. So that's just, a whole range of different examples of how maths is used in the real world.
We might be able to get that posted on your profile page on
Absolutely, yes, thank you, yeah.
They'll all be in one place.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions? No? Thanks very much, Jillian.